Welcome back to our People of Web3 podcast. I'm your co-host Frank, and with me is my other co-host Blaine. How are you doing?
Good. G'day, GM.
GM. And today we have a co-founder of WOVN, Jamie, joining us. How are you doing, Jamie?
I'm doing excellent, excellent. It is a GM, but it's also in the evening for me. I'm based in LA, so I'm in a little bit of a different time zone.
Nice.
Yeah.
There's always a GM somewhere.
That's true. That's a good way to
And
think.
today we're going to talk about Woven, your platform. I'll let you do the intro. And today's episode is going to be for the artists and art collectors, creator economy. I think that's very exciting. So, Jamie, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and then what you're doing?
Yeah, so actually, and I think probably the best way for me to do that is I'll give a little bit of personal history because I think it kind of frames, how I got to where I am, and then also why, I'm building Woven. So, I was the 47th employee of YouTube in 2006. I stayed at YouTube for 16 years. The last 6 or 7 years, I oversaw the creator business at YouTube, and so, have a I paid the first creators ever at YouTube. And so, which
Wow.
is arguably, day one of the creator economy. And so, the creator economy is something that is like very important to me. I'm super passionate about helping creators realize their creative and business ambitions and, had an incredible run at YouTube. But, I think like many of us, during the pandemic, started to kind of fall in love with kind of the ideas of Web3, the principles of Web3, particularly as it related to creators. So giving creators more independence, more control, more economic upside. And then, of course, personally, fell in love with, generative art. I think I had always had an attraction to the idea of digital art, but it wasn't until I started to kind of understand kind of these principles of like provenance on the blockchain and kind of art being created with code that it really kind of captured me. And so from YouTube, I decided to kind of move into Web3 to kind of get immersed into this space. I joined a project called Bright Moments, which many people I'm sure have heard of, kind of a traveling NFT kind of art project going from city to city, minting amazing artists around the world. And it was while I was there that a couple of really important things happened. One, I met my co-founder, Jesse Rogers, who is one of the founding members of Bright Moments. But two, as Jesse and I would talk, Jesse was engaging with a lot of the artists kind of one-to-one, helping them with the different Bright Moments drops. I started to hear the problems and the challenges that the Web3 creators were facing. And to me, they reminded me of everything I was hearing in 2006 and 2007. And I think in two ways. One, the sense of like opportunity and wonder, right? Like in 2006, 2007, you had creators who had uploaded a video to YouTube. They woke up the next day and it had 100,000 views. And they said to themselves, like, oh my God, like this could be my next career, right? Or maybe I could do this full time. I think we saw the same thing happen in Web3, right? You have artists that would, have digital art that maybe they had been making for themselves. Maybe they were posting it on Instagram. All of a sudden they mint it, they post it on a platform, somebody buys it, and then all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, I can actually make this my career, as a creator. So that was really kind of, inspiring to me. But I think the second thing was that in Web 2, one of the principles that became really important was diversification. If you didn't diversify your revenue streams, when there were cyclical parts of the advertising market, pullbacks for different reasons, your audience growth slowed down for a second, all of a sudden you found yourself in a really difficult position. And so, I realized that there was a need for opportunities for creators to diversify their revenue. So something that we started to think a lot about. And then I think for me, one of the most ironic parts of of the move from Web 2 to Web 3 was that I moved for this principle of creators having more independent control and economic upside. And I realized that because we're decentralized, like by nature, by principle, by ethos in the Web 3 space, the creators' customer data their collector data is fragmented across blockchains and platforms. And so in many ways, the creators in Web3 have less control, right? If you're a creator in Web2, you can go to YouTube Analytics, or you can go to analytics of Meta or Twitter. You know who your audience is. You can make decisions about your content. You can make decisions about how to develop offshoots of your brand. In Web3, as we talked to creators, they were telling us things like, I spent all day yesterday in Etherscan copying and pasting wallet addresses into an Excel spreadsheet. And so, my kind of, Google brain, my Web2 brain kind of clicked on, and I realized that, we needed to do something to help creators better understand who their audiences are, so that they can, build more robust, businesses in Web3. And so that leads us to like WOVN. And so what WOVN is essentially, it's a vertical commerce platform. What we've created is a really robust back-end data infrastructure where we're aggregating and normalizing collector data across blockchains and across platforms so that a creator in one place can see all of their collectors, regardless of chain they minted on. They can see all of their activity, their sales activity, their transfer activity in one activity feed. And that's kind of the back-end tooling that they need to make kind of creative decisions. And on top of that, we're building commerce experiences that we call wallet-aware commerce, because when the collector or the customer connects their wallet to that storefront for that individual creator, we know what they hold. And so we can then personalize that experience for that collector. We can token gate things really easily, let them get access to certain premium drops, let them get access to prints and things of that nature. And so we're building storefronts. We have the data back end, and then we're building partnerships with fulfillment companies, everything from, print fulfillment for fine art prints to almost any sort of product that a creator might want to extend their brand into. So just to kind of sum that up one more time, hopefully a little bit more succinctly, that WOVN's basically building a vertical commerce platform that integrates omni-chain analytics, storefront infrastructure, and fulfillment to help creators, diversify their businesses, better understand their customers, and realize their creative and their business ambitions. So
interesting. Just a quick one on the storefront. So because you're aggregating their collections across these different blockchains, that storefront would essentially link to these different, places where the art is currently being sold. So it could link to OpenSea, it could link to Rarible, could link to Magic Eden Order.
It's a great question, and it's something. It's a great question because philosophically, one of the things that we've thought a lot about is, what do we want the collector and the artist experience to be like on our platform? We do have kind of artist profiles that we're launching in 2 weeks. We see other artist profiles out, kind of in the market today, and when we look at those, they look overly financialized. There's too many listings. There's too many references to floor prices. We are creator first. We're starting in the art segment. We'll move to other segments, but we are art first. And so we're trying to create an experience that's about the work, about the creator, and try not to fixate on a secondary marketplace or things of that nature. So actually what you'll see on WOVN when we launch the profiles in a couple of weeks is kind of an experience that's designed to help you actually enjoy the art. You'll see things like retrospective timelines. You'll be able to look at an artist and see their NFT work from the first project or NFT they uploaded all the way up to something they uploaded, today. And so really thinking about it from their point of view, from an artist's point of view, and like what their mind frame is and how they want to present their work.
Yeah, interesting. When you look at so you've been in the Web2 creator economy, I guess from the genesis, you're there when the first YouTube creators got paid. What were some of the learnings from the Web2 creator economy that could translate into Web3, and what's currently needs to be like reinvent or invented in the Web3 space, like to fill in some of the gaps that couldn't exist in Web2?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the most important one right now is diversification. I think diversification of, how you diversify your revenue across, different opportunities. We're starting with product fulfillment for creators. So we're helping them, like, do prints, physical products, and then we imagine that there'll be other pathways. When I was at YouTube, I used to talk, we used to say, hey, we have 10 different ways to monetize for creators, and that lets a creator assemble the right toolkit for them. And so, we know that creators are generating their own revenue from NFT sales on different platforms. We'll start helping them develop brand extensions, and then we'll probably move into some other areas as those become, clear to us. I think that, in some ways, we're decentralized, right, by default in Web3 and by ethos. We do think we need to kind of re-aggregate some of the data and normalize it so that it's more usable for the creators, but we need to do it in ways that kind of maintain, the ethos that we all believe in. So, it's looking at things like zero knowledge and like, how do we actually like pull some things together in ways that, kind of protect collector anonymity if that's something that they're interested in, but at the same time, allow for the engagement, right? Because that's kind of one of the things you potentially, that's what you lose. That's what you hear a lot of artists say, is that, like, I know I have these like hyper engaged collectors, but I don't know who they are and I don't know how to get into contact with them. And so we want to solve those problems, but still by maintaining the, the core beliefs that we all have in this space.
Interesting. See your brain ticking, Frank.
So many questions. I don't know where to start. Okay.
Let me jump in while you gather your thoughts.
Too many going on.
Just on the revenue stream part, just to get a bit more granular, what could you maybe list out maybe what some of those revenue streams could look like in Web3 at the moment? Like, just as like a practical, I'm an artist, I'm looking to get in this space, or I'm in this space, but I don't actually know. There's brand deals, there's NFT sales. What are some of those streams that they could potentially tap into?
So I mean, I think if you were to look at, again, some of these models will be borrowed from Web2, but there are things like, whether they're membership programs, that's a very clear use case. I mean, we obviously see that as a core NFT use case more generally. We think that that's something that, many creators will be able to, adopt, whether it's with an NFT or whether it's, a social token ERC20, type approach. That's an example. And, again, exists in Web2, but can be updated in much more compelling ways because we can token gate and things of that nature. So there's examples like that, with the situation that's happening with, kind of royalties, across the space, something that I think we'd all hoped would, had been maintained. You can imagine things like, early days of Web2, you had things like tip jars and like, ways to kind of like offer patronage to a creator. I imagine we'll see similar things, in the Web3 space where, maybe you purchase something on a marketplace, but then you go to a creator's profile and actually pay them their royalty directly, something to that effect. So, those are all types of things that, we may look at, but, I think, we've got kind of this core focus now of, helping them identify how to extend their brands, their creator brands, and build commerce businesses.
Interesting.
What are some feedbacks from art collectors? What are they excited about WOVN?
Yeah, so we're not. So first, I would say is that we don't have a collector side yet. So we're not a two-sided kind of marketplace yet. The storefronts will start to launch kind of towards the end of August. But in speaking to collectors, some of the things that we hear about are, a lot of us love prints, right? So we love the idea of having the NFT, which is kind of, we may display that on a digital frame of some sort. But I mean, even behind me, you can see that I've got, some prints and whatnot. So, we love the idea of kind of like the actual physical part of the art. But right now, that process is incredibly friction filled. when you kind of go to order a print from a creator, there's, do you know if it's if the print's like already been taken, right? Because like many artists will only allow one print per token. The artists themselves then have to keep track of that. So you see a lot of, when I look at it, coming again from like this mindset of like things need to be scalable, they need to be easy, we need to remove friction. We think that, in speaking with collectors, there's a great opportunity to make that type of process much easier. I would say another thing that will be really interesting in this space is that, a lot of us aspire to collect work that, maybe is out of our price range, but we still want to be part of a community, right? And so through Woven, a creator offer a range of items, that may not be that $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 NFT, but it might be a more affordable print or some other item that I can kind of actually connect myself to that artist or creator, as the first step in my journey to becoming one of their long-term collectors or one of their biggest members of their community.
Sorry, I just was coughing there. You're talking about art focus first. Is that just because you're an art fan yourself? Is that kind of the main reason? You just love
art?
So
the reason that we started there's two reasons. One, we felt like the art community in the NFT space was hyper engaged, right? Like this is a space that took off, pretty significantly in 2021. There's a lot of creators in this space. It's a very active kind of, engaged community. So that's kind of the first reason that we focused or started there. And yes, we were working in this space, that obviously helped. And we had a lot of networks and network and connection in that space. But I think the second reason, and this is really important when you're building tools, is that if you can solve the needs of an independent creator, it's much easier to grow into other categories, right? So, we're kind of thinking about the artist or the creator who's, creating their work at home, in their bedroom, in their office, and they need to understand this data. They need to figure out how to extend their brand in different ways, and they don't have a team, right? They haven't reached that level of success yet. They don't have an assistant, things of that nature. And so, we figure that that's like a really hard challenge to tackle. If we can make our tools useful for a single individual, we can then move into teams of people. We can move into projects, collectible projects, and things of that nature. But I think ultimately, if you were to look at what our progression or our planned progression looks like, it starts in the kind of the art niche, moves into the creator economy more broadly, right? That could be music, that could be any type of creator in the Web3 creator economy. And then ultimately we may end up, with working with brands. So it's kind of like a kind of relatively natural progression that you see that across many companies, in the creator economy space.
How's the experience onboarding or introducing Woven to artists in the Web3 space now? Because I know we had a chat before and you had, I think, less than 100 artists at the moment.
So we're just about 90. So we released the platform. We're not a year, we're about 9 months old as a company. We released the first version of the product kind of in late March, and we have got about 90 creators on the platform today. I would say it's been really interesting to see how they've joined Woven or come into Woven. Some of them, we knew the first cohort, right? Like we knew them personally, we onboarded them directly. And then what's happened is like almost every single creator we've onboarded has referred at least one other. Some have referred several. And, some have, Jimmy Wen, who's based in Taiwan, is, he's referred like 40. You know what I mean? And so not all of them have onboarded, but, there's, which that's kind of to us like a really strong signal when you have like a creator or an artist that's using your platform, they're finding enough value in it that they'll turn around and recommend that their
Mm.
friends, their colleagues, also try the platform. And, we've also gotten some discovery too, where people, maybe they stumble upon something we've tweeted or, something to that effect, and they come in through our wait list, and then we kind of onboard them. And, it's also been interesting, I would say, to see like usage patterns. And, the summer in, so it's summer in the US. So, you see kind of a little bit of a dip in like usage, during the weekends, actually, in particular, that we didn't see in the very beginning. But it's been really exciting to see. We've got about half of our users are monthly active. 10 to 12% are coming back every single week. And this is, of course, highly related to like how often how often they're dropping. One of the things that we do, which is, probably relatively standard retention driver, is we send out new collector updates every Friday. So we know when someone has new collectors across any platform, we send them a note, and we actually see that driving a lot of retention and usage, because people want to come in, they want to look at the wallet. Is this a new collector for the first time? Are they accumulating my work? Those are all the types of insights you're able to gain by using the back end part of our tool set.
And at the moment, are they able to then connect with the collector at the moment? Because I know you mentioned
That's one of the next things that we're working on right now. So a couple different ways that we're going to achieve that. One is through opt-in. So we have a couple of mechanics that we're going to deploy that encourage collectors to kind of come in. Maybe you are on an allow list. We have an allow list builder as part of the tool set. Maybe you connect your wallet to claim your allow list spot. The artist says, hey, do you want to stay in touch? Let me know your contact info. Do you have other wallets that my work might be in other chains? And so we can start to unify profiles, give them ways to connect with the collector's preferred method, whether that's Telegram, a social platform, email, etc. So, we'll also offer, there's a lot of artists that have been collecting contact info for their collectors directly already. They may or may not know wallet addresses. So we'll also allow them to kind of like merge that data into their own, kind of set of collector records as well.
Interesting.
And are you planning to have your own direct message feature on your platform itself?
Still thinking about that. We kind of thought a lot about wallet to wallet messaging. Feels a touch early for that right now, but we do really like that concept. We may allow some notifications, in the platform, like on platform. So we're still contemplating what the best pathway is. And that's going to be through, what the artists are really looking for. Like, how do they want to engage? Like, I'd say one thing more broadly, creator economy, that I think is pretty challenging right now. And I think I worry about on behalf of creators and artists in the Web3 space is that, the community is fragmented, right? Like, if you go back 6 months ago, we were all on crypto Twitter, right? And so now it's great that there's incredible platforms out there like Warpcast, like Blue Sky, Threads is launched. But what I think is happening now is you've seen a little bit of a fragmentation where, people are setting up profiles in different places. They're starting to spend more time on one platform versus another. And, that I think is adding to the challenge that creators are going to have going forward. And I think it also kind of underscores the need for a platform like WOVN, where you can, as a creator, you can own your own profile, you can collect the contact info and the preferred method of contact, from your collectors and your customers. And so, that's kind of, I think hopefully another value that we'll be able to deliver to creators in the Web3 space.
Yeah, because I'm feeling as a creator, you have to create, you have to be present in every single platform. If you don't, you feel like you're missing out a lot. And especially now with so many viable options, a lot of people are not using Twitter as well. Yeah.
But we have, we've got there's Lens, there's Yup.io. So, hopefully there's some of these other services that kind of help us tie some things together. But, I think, yeah, we're definitely in a transition period, I think in the space. Probably good that it's happening a little bit in the bear, and, so that hopefully we can sort it out, as we start to kind of come out the other side.
That's true. True.
Yeah, that fragmentation one's like I see that as something we have to deal with outside of NFTs, just in the broader crypto context, because in a digital space it is easy to, I guess, fragment something and create some new space based on your ideas, values, or whatever. But a consequence of that is that you kind of fragment the attention and fragment, I guess, the people involved in that space. So I think what you're doing in some other projects that are based around, I guess, aggregating all of that together into one place makes a lot of sense and provides a lot of value in this case for creators, because it's good that that fragmentation happens in a lot of ways, but at the same time you need to kind of rein it in and bring it all together again. Like they both should exist, but one without the other is an issue.
Yeah, I think right, exactly. It makes it challenging, right? I mean, if you think about it from this lens, that like, creators in the Web3 space had relied on Twitter to be their conduit to their audience. And now that audience, some of them have moved on. And so now they have an important drop coming up, and they really be sure they're reaching their audience. And so that's the thing I worry about. And so, we hope to be able to help them solve that, through, again, probably through opt-in, probably less, we don't want to necessarily become another like messaging platform or social feed in and of ourselves, but, can help connect dots, right? Could be what we'd be thinking about.
Yeah. And just real quick on something you mentioned earlier about the connecting the artists with the collectors. I really like that, because that connection in Web3 spaces seems to be something that we all kind of crave and seek out. But when it comes to art, I feel like that's even more important, or could be even an even richer connection, because, like, at least in my opinion, art is like a condensing down ideas into something that you can kind of consume with your senses. And if you resonate with that, that's at a pretty deep level, because you resonate with that idea. So if you can connect with someone that believes in the same ideas and values that you have, then that kind of makes for a real potentially meaningful connection. So facilitating that, I think, would add a lot of value.
I agree with you 100%, right? And that's why, I think when we all started using different PFPs that represented like NFTs or different things, we were signaling to other people that we were, part of this community, right? And so, and a lot of us, when we acquire a new piece for our collection, we tweet it about it. And like, the question is like, are we flexing really, or are we celebrating the artist? Do you know what I mean? And I think I like to think that I'm celebrating the artist and helping other people, discover them if they may not know who they are. So.
You mentioned before we started you had an interesting morning ritual, GM ritual.
Oh yeah.
You maybe want to touch on that?
Well, so I'll caveat this a little bit by saying that, like, I would say over the past, so 16 years at Google, like, it's a good life. You work really hard, but it's a good life. Startup founder, it's like pretty hard, right? Like, you're kind of like, stress levels are really high. And I've had many people over the past couple of weeks tell me like, listen, like, phone out of the bedroom, like, get up in the morning, go for a walk, see the sunshine, don't pick up your phone, don't do your email. I'm 5 a.m., Red Bull, like, computer's open. I'm like buying NFTs at 5:15 in the morning, like having a cup of coffee, at 5:45. So I'm like a little bit like, I'm doing the opposite of like wellness. But it kind of like works for me. By like 6:30, I'm like caffeinated out of my mind, and I'm running like 1,000 miles an hour. So, but
the anti-wellness movement.
The anti-wellness.
Is this your first startup? like since
Well,
9 months?
It's the first one I founded myself. Yeah, I mean, I've had kind of a fortunate run in that I was a very very early employee at DoubleClick, which basically created the ad serving infrastructure for the internet back in kind of like the Web 1 essentially. Later got acquired, much later got acquired by Google. I wasn't there at that time, but and then early employee at YouTube. So I've been fortunate to have worked at incredibly successful startups, and been in the first 20 to 50 employees at both of those companies. I feel like that has given me a lot of great insight because I've seen businesses start from a small group of people and then scale to like global operations. And so, that's why like you'll hear me talk a lot about friction, scalability. Like I see certain things happening in, the Web3 space, frankly, that just don't make sense to me. Like I look at certain things and I'm like, hey, that's not gonna serve the it's not going to solve the problem that it needs to solve because it's not being done in the most scalable way, or it's has too much friction in a certain process. And so we kind of think a lot about how do you take those frictions out, how do you make it so that our business can scale really effectively, because there's going to be hundreds and thousands of millions of creators in this space, and they're going to need tools and solutions to like build their businesses if we want Web3 to be as robust as Web2 has turned out to be.
And how large is your team now? I think you started with 2 people, 2 co-founders.
Yeah, well, so just my co-founder and I kind of started the company, and then we have a few people based here in LA that are kind of on the core team, and then we have some devs spread out in other markets. I think that's one of the other great things I think about being in the Web3 space is many of the companies in this space are kind of like remote first or remote friendly. And we get the opportunity to kind of source great talent from all over the world, find time zone appropriate times to meet and have calls. And so it's been really exciting to like pull together a new team from scratch. That's like distributed but like hyper engaged with one another.
Is it
Okay.
interesting that you've kind of been on the in and around the creator economy from Web 1 to Web 2, now Web 3? Like that's pretty cool. Just the learnings that you can kind of take from one web version to the next web version.
Yeah. That's definitely, I think that's definitely true. And it's like you can look at, I'm able to look back at, either companies that did well or didn't do well, decisions that were made at, whether it was DoubleClick or YouTube, that were formative in the success of those companies, and figure out how they apply to our business. And kind of, we do that. Like, the team's not sick of me talking about those things yet. There may be a time. But yeah, like I think there's a lot of great insights from the earlier phases of the web that, can be pulled into like Web3 thinking, obviously with our new, with like a different ethos. So.
Yeah, gotcha.
What would you say is the main advantage of Web3 creator economy versus the Web2 version? Why do you want to come into Web3?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, notwithstanding kind of some of the things that I said at the outset of the call, right, that like the data is fragmented, but, in Web2, the data and the platform is very clearly not yours, right? Like, I think we see examples of that all the time, whether it's, creators being removed from platforms for different reasons, sometimes for good reasons, and sometimes they should be, in Web3, you're more in control. You can have your own smart contract and mint your own projects, right? You can go to Etherscan and pull down the wallet data from your collectors. You can do that on your own. Like we want to make that easier for you, to kind of access that data. But that is the advantage. You can truly be independent and not reliant on any one platform. If you don't like the way that they're operating, or you don't like the principles that a platform is espousing, you don't have to stay there. In Web 2, if you've grown up on any one platform, there is kind of a lock in there because your audience is there and they're not portable. And Web3, it's your audience is portable.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's very, very important. Damn, I had a question. I lost it.
You were talking about well, we're probably getting close to the end, but earlier on you were talking about how code as art was something that you gravitated towards. What was similar for me, to be honest? My background's in architecture, and I kind of left, and I've always been into design, creativity. But when I met a fellow architect who launched an NFT generative art collection, it kind of got me back in the game again. It inspired me to, I guess, explore my creative roots again. What about code as art, generative art, appeals to you? And yeah, that whole medium of code as a medium for art. What do you like about it? What do you think about it?
I think one thing that's exciting about it is I think like as collectors, right? Like we see a project that we're drawn to for some reason, and we kind of explore it, right? Like we explore the variations and how this particular mint is different from this particular mint, and the interplays and the similarities between the cohesiveness of an entire project and the differences between the individual projects. That to me personally is really exciting. But the other thing that I think we have to realize is that the artists go through the same process, right? Like they've written a piece of code, and when they run it, they are often just as surprised by the outputs as we are. And that's just like, to me, we're kind of like, we're in this together as collectors and artists, and like we're kind of appreciating kind of the magic that happens in the space. And so I think that's that for sure is like one of my biggest things that excites me about it. And I also obviously you kind of referenced the fact that I've been in web 1, web 2, and web 3. The thing about that too is like I'm just very like future oriented, and so when I started to kind of hear this kind of idea that like art is being written by code and like people are displaying it on TVs and screens in their house, like that to me is like stuff that I dreamed about when I was a little kid.
Really I never thought of it that way. The shared experience of being surprised, at least to a certain extent.
Yeah, and you see it, right? Sometimes an artist will post something on Twitter and they'll be like, how did this happen? Like they have no, it's like something that they totally didn't expect, or some like they'll basically be reviewing the project, or they'll look at your piece and they'll say, you know what, like I probably did 1,000 test outputs, not a single one ever came out looking like this. Like I have no idea. Like and that's just some of the wonder of the creative process, between between the artist and the computer and the code.
And some of them they purposefully add like chances of glitches, right?
For sure. Yeah, exactly.
Error.
Right. Yeah, and it's like the rarities, right? The rarities are super fun too. But I mean, I think even now, I think one of the things that you kind of see some trends kind of emerge in the space as well. But like right now, there's a lot of folks that are creating work that you would be hard pressed to believe that it was written by code and not done with a paintbrush, which is just like the technical mastery that some of these emerging artists have. Not emerging, I mean, well, I guess they're emerging. It's an emerging movement, I guess. It's been around for decades, right? Generative art's been around for decades, but it's kind of having its moment now. But the fact that you have these artists that are able to kind of like control the code in such a way that it literally looks like paint strokes, on a canvas is just it's just phenomenal. It's just so much fun.
Yeah, there's like the visual aspect is cool. Like it looks interesting. But another thing that I like about code as art is in the NFT space, often the art is actually the code. The code itself is the NFT, and what you see is just a representation of that code. But the moment the code becomes the art itself, the art becomes like the seed, the very idea in and of itself. Like that's becomes the art is the idea behind what it looks like. And also it being art, I mean, it being code means it can kind of, it's almost like a model, because like unlike a painting or something that degrades over time, and that also has a quality to it. But having a piece of art that is pretty much immortalized in the digital world, that's also like just pretty interesting to think about.
For sure. Right. On chain forever,
Yeah.
like, reproducible anytime, with provenance and everything.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay. Well, I want to ask one more question. What would your top tip be for artists who are entering Web3 and they're very early, they don't have the big crypto Twitter following, and they just want to mint their artwork, but they want to find audience. How would you advise them to get started?
Yeah. So I think, it's probably similar across many creator economy type spaces and companies, but they should like share their work, find other artists who, they admire, whose work that inspires them, and try, connect with them, follow them, share their work. And, it's definitely growing an audience is challenging regardless of what creator business you happen to be in. And a lot of it is just through like connecting with like-minded folks, collaborating. I think that's one area that is really an area I'd encourage people to think about. Like, if you have a artist that you admire and you're similar to, maybe you're around the same size, is there work that you could do together? Because you might have, maybe like 2% or 10% of your audience overlaps, but the rest of your audience is net new to the other creator. And so can you help another creator meet your audience and vice versa? That was very successful in Web2, and we think that'll be successful in Web3. We're actually going to build tools for that, to help people see like other artists that they might be similar to, that they might want to do collabs with or something like that. So
yeah, I'll be excited for that feature. I love collaborating.
Yeah, the collab man. How can people connect with you online and Woven? What handles and whatnot can we share
for
below?
sure. So we are woven.xyz on the web. We're woven_xyz on Twitter. I'm Jamie Byrne, at Jamie Byrne on Twitter. So feel free to kind of connect with me there. Those are probably the best ways for now. And then, we'll share, on our website, we'll share other ways like
Dates and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I really encourage, like, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate the opportunity, to talk to both of you. And, to kind of just sum up again, if you're a creator or an artist in the Web3 space, really encourage you to check out kind of Woven. Come to the website, which is again woven.xyz. We have a waitlist flow where you can come in, you can give us your wallet addresses, your minting wallet addresses. We can get a profile set up for you, and that can get you started seeing your collector data. We're really excited about the commerce opportunity. Again, both prints and then physical items. We had a great evening this evening. We have a creator who's going to be releasing kind of handbags with her art printed on it later this year, and we're able to share the first samples. They look incredible. We're working with another artist on like silk scarves and some other kind of really like high-end premium items. And so there's really a lot of potential for Web3 creators to build their own commerce brands and basically extend the different ways that they're generating revenue, to basically free up more time and help, make them successful as creators. So
Awesome.
Amazing.
We'll share all those links below for those that want to get involved. And thanks, Jamie, for your time, and thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you guys in the next one.
awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you.